So teamwork. How many of you guys played sports or have worked in any type of team before at some point in your life? Everybody should be raising their hand, right? No? No team? No teams?
I didn't see that.
No team? Everybody's worked on a team, right, at some point. Even if it's your family, right? That's a team, right? To a certain extent. So today we're talking about teamwork. And obviously in healthcare, teamwork is critical. You're always working on teams, which is why you guys have team assignments, because clinical or non-clinical, you know, I'm not clinical, but I still had to work on teams when I was in the hospitals or even when I was doing consulting, we had teams. I worked on project management teams, so teams are pretty unavoidable in healthcare. And so this chapter to me is very important because it's something that you are bound to do at some point in your healthcare career, especially if you're in management. So, what's a team? They have this fancy definition up here, but I want to hear from you guys about how you define a team.
I think a team is a group of people working together, like it says up there.
Group of people working together.
I think it's 2 or 3 people coming together, working together on a project or working with an organization as a team. So
A
that's
group of people that's working together trying to attain the same goal.
Same goal, okay, that's key. Anything else? Are they working together happily?
No.
Not all the time.
Not all the time, okay. So it might be a disgruntled team, is that what I'm saying? Disgruntled team?
Yes.
Okay, are they competing against each other?
I think
Sometimes, yeah.
sometimes.
Sometimes.
Sometimes you have one that's the leader, and they just take everything and run with it. And, you know. they
So you
don't-
think that's the competitive person?
Uh-huh.
It's possible. Anybody else? You all seem to agree with the competition part. If there's that much competition, is it really a team?
No, because they're not working together.
Well, no, not
Well,
really. It
I mean,
depends on.
What?
It depends.
It depends on what
It
the team
depends on
is
what the
formed
team
for.
has
It
to-
depends on what type of team you're talking about. Like our team group kind of thing, we're all working for the same goal, to get a good grade and understand what our, case studies or group assignments are. But teams, let's say like a debate team or something like that, then that may be different. Or it just depends on what the basis
What
of
the
the
goal
team
is.
is.
Okay.
You got the team leader, but
But we all agree that they have a common goal.
Yes.
And they should be all, in an effective team, they should all be working towards the same goal, correct?
Mhm.
Correct.
All right, so we're on the same page somewhat. So of course, there's different types of teams. You have cross-functional teams, virtual teams, task forces, and committees. Do you guys know what cross-functional teams are?
I guess that would be the team that supposedly, has like the most mutual commitment to each other. Is that?
Okay, I'll go with that. It also could mean that they have different responsibilities at different times. Does that make sense?
No.
We all know what virtual teams are, right? And you're seeing more virtual teams now that more companies are starting to go global with their organization. So, big companies like Dell and Walmart, those types of companies are working to do more with the virtual teams. So you may be on a project with somebody from Japan or London at any given time. And, I've had friends that have actually sometimes complained about these virtual teams because they may have had to wake up at 2 a.m. in the morning or something like that to do a conference call with their virtual teammates who may have been in another country. So while virtual teams may have some advantages, it may also have some disadvantages when you look at it like that. So with a team, it's not always going to go easy, right? It's going to be some challenges. And, these are some of the challenges that you're looking at. If we think about physicians and nurses working together, is that always a
No.
happy ending?
No.
Is it ever a happy ending?
No, depends on the situation.
Sometimes.
It's a case-by-case scenario.
Okay. So as a healthcare manager, part of your responsibility is to make sure that these types of teams, and clinical teams and physicians and nurses are running smoothly and that they're not fighting too much. So that may require you to step in and mediate at times. That's also going to require you to know who to pair up with the right people. You want to make sure that their personalities are somewhat the same so they don't clash and they're able to achieve the things that they need to achieve. So if we get down to the facts, let's talk about why physicians and nurses may not work together well.
They're very headstrong, and then the physicians feel like some of them have more education and they're on a little bit higher level as far as patient ratio, and they prescribe orders and things like that. They have some orders that nurses don't do basically, so they feel like they're above you, so they already gonna come in with their nose in the air, even if you have to knock it back down sometimes. So.
Okay, yes ma'am.
I think physicians a lot of the time work under pressure, and if you got a nurse that's just laid back, that's not gonna work.
Okay.
That nurse has to come up to standard also.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, we had this nurse that we labeled as Nurse Ratchet. She was just very rude to the physicians and the patients. So if you get a brand new doctor out of medical school who's very calm and meek, by the end of that year, that nurse could swing him to be a little bit more aggressive and towards his patients.
What about when we think about patients and families? Do you think that some of the conflict may come from physicians and nurses having different opinions about the plan of care when it comes to the patients and how to deal with the families?
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
Definitely.
Yeah, like for instance, that work study that we had to do, she was going to question about the mother feeding the baby. I said, I felt that that was not her place to do it because that was the mother's dying wish for her child. So I didn't think she had the right to question them from that.
So, we talked about teams, we talked about conflicts, we talked about specifically about why they don't work. So here we have some benefits of if the team actually does work. And some of the benefits are obviously we're improving the quality of care, which should be our #1 goal. We are being more efficient in the things that we do, which may mean we're using less supplies, we're finishing things quicker, we're reducing patient wait time, we're increasing job satisfaction. If people are working together well, they're going to be more likely and more excited about coming to work versus people who, they wake up and they're like, I got to go to work today and work with so-and-so and their attitude. So, an effective team is going to obviously increase your employee morale and your satisfaction. It's also going to increase patient satisfaction. Obviously, if we're on a team and we're working together, people are watching us. So, if the patients are able to see that we're working together and we're getting along and we're getting the job done, then it's going to increase their satisfaction as well. And obviously, we're going to be more productive if we're not wasting time. So higher level managers. At some point, that would be, hopefully, each one of you guys. And so how you play into, the team and the teamwork is that you have to improve the communication. So what that means is when you put a team together, you can't just say, okay, y'all, go finish this, go do X, Y, Z. When you put the team together, there should be some type of communication as to what the goal is, how you should get there, how long it's going to take for you to get there, what you expect from them. So they have some type of guidance rather than just kind of throwing them out in the water and expecting them to know exactly what to do. You got to communicate productivity. So what that means is if you put a team together to decrease patient wait time, you need to explain that to the team that if you are working more efficiently, this is what will happen. So kind of explain to them about the importance of being productive and how working together as an effective team will do that. Obviously, an effective team is going to decrease the amount of absences that you have in your organization, which at the end of the day is going to tie into your bottom line and how much money you're making. And as we just talked about, job satisfaction and reduced turnover. So what's the cost? We can't just put together this group of people and expect them to work together and hold hands and sing songs without there being any cost to it, right? Something, there's a cost for everything almost. So here are a few costs. Meeting time. What time are we gonna meet? Everybody has different schedules. You guys go through this every time you have a group assignment, right? You gotta decide where you're gonna meet. You gotta decide, how much time you're spending when you meet. And you're also gonna think about the time you lose doing something else. So every time you all meet and you're working together, some of you guys in the back of your head are probably thinking, I could have been at home watching my DVR, right? That's your opportunity cost. That's what you might be missing out on because of the reason that you're meeting, right? Perceived loss of autonomy. And you touched on this a little bit. When you have one person in the group that wants to be in charge, but what if there's 3 other people in the team that also are used to being in charge? That's the cost. That's going to be a cost. Somebody's going to have to step back and let somebody else, whoever wants to run the show, or whoever's been appointed to run the show. And along with a loss of autonomy is going to come some risk. If you decide to step back, that means that you are putting your faith in someone else, right? And that's a risk, right?
Yeah.
Especially if this is not someone that you're familiar with, you don't work with them before, you don't know what their work style is like, you don't know if they just talk to the game and they say they're going to do all this stuff and finish everything on time, or if they're actually going to do it. So there's a lot of risks that go along with stepping back and allowing somebody else to kind of take control. And the last thing, resistance to organizational change. Sometimes working in groups means that there's about to be some change. And so as a result, working together, that may be a cost. So we're going to talk a little bit about different stages that are involved in working together and teamwork. So the first 2 steps are forming and storming. Is anybody familiar with this concepts? No? Forming obviously is just as it says. This is when you're first getting together, you're discussing what it is you have to do. So you're thinking out the task, you're checking out your teammates, trying to see who is the best person to do this, best person to do that. So it's kind of the introductory stage. Then you have storming. Sounds kind of like a scary kind of word, right? Storm, stormy, bad weather. That deals with conflict. And obviously that's going to come when there's different personalities, different people wanting to be in control at the same time, or just different objectives. One person may want to do the assignment or the task one way, and someone else may want to do it the other way. That may cause a little conflict, and that's your storming stage. So if we can get past the storming stage, some teams don't, but if we can get past the storming stage, then we get to performing. That's when we are actually taking the time out to accomplish the things that we are set out to accomplish as a team. We're talking to each other, we're assigning duties, we're delegating, and we're pretty much putting in the work to get it done. And then adjourning is basically just as it sounds. This is kind of the end stage. This is where, if we are thinking in terms of your group projects, this is pretty much the last day of your group project. So, your new team role. What do you think would be some questions that you can ask?
Who wants to be the leader?
What's your question?
Who wants to be the leader?
Who wants to be the leader? First question. Any other questions?
Is the leader is the person qualified to be the leader?
Is the person qualified to be the leader? What other type of questions would you ask? Think about in terms of your own teams. When you guys have a new assignment for your team, what are the questions you ask on day one?
Who are my teammates?
Who are our teammates? Great question. Who else?
What are their schedules?
What are their schedules?
Where are we going to meet?
Where are we going to meet? Okay. Any other ones?
Who feels good with public speaking? Because you know she's gonna make us stand at the front of the classroom and read. So
Who's
you
good
gotta
at whatever
know
they
who's gonna
do?
be public
Who's
speaking.
good at whatever they do? Nobody said goals. That's got to be one of the first things that we talk about. All right, why are we here? What's the reason that we're here? What are we going to do? Right? So goals. How are we going to measure the goals? How are we going to know if we accomplished what we're here to do? Deadlines. Nobody said deadlines either.
Oh, you mean like when it's due or whatever?
When it's due. Why is that important?
So you can turn it on.
Turn it on time, but besides that, what else?
You don't do it the day before.
You don't do it the day before.
So in case you need to make corrections, you have time to make corrections.
Time to make corrections. The deadline is going to set the pace.
Yeah.
If you have a long extended deadline, you know that you can, take X, Y, and Z days to do this task and X, Y, Z days. But what if your deadline's next week? You got to work extra fast, extra hard. You got to put in this many hours to get it done. So the deadline kind of sets the stage for that. You guys said that one. Where's the team meet? What about that? To whom do I report? Good one, right? What's my role on the team? Nobody said that. That's important, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, what might happen?
I would
all do the same thing.
Yeah. I asked like,
When they say
who
that,
did
everybody assign something.
If you don't assign your role,
Right.
what if more than one person does the same thing?
Well, that's why you assign it at the beginning.
And what are my responsibilities in that role? So, good managers. Should be great managers, actually. But anyway, a good manager is not going to mind if people ask questions. And when you're first forming a team together or a group, there should be a lot of questions, especially if the group is new and they've never worked before and this is a brand new task they've never done before. So, as a manager, you should be okay with them asking you questions. Don't turn them away. Don't say you're too busy. When you put this group together, you have to go in knowing that they're going to be asking you questions. I have to also know that there's going to be some coaching and mentoring involved. I already know when I put you in groups, I'm going to get at least blank number of calls and emails. I already know it. I prepared myself mentally. As a manager, you have to do the same. You have to know that some of your time has got to be carved out to coach and mentor this team. There's going to be some conflict. There's going to be some issues. So as a manager, you have to be prepared for that in your mind and know that it's coming. I already know you guys are going to email me or call me saying so-and-so did this or so-and-so hasn't done that. I've already prepared for it in my mind. Even if it's the best team or, the best people, there's still probably going to be some type of conflict or some type of issue. And it may not necessarily be a bad issue or a bad conflict. It may just be we're not finding the information we need. We need more time or we need help. But as a good manager, you should know that that's going to come with the job. And the last thing is, good manager is going to want thoughtful observations from a new perspective, which is going to be yours, the team. Now, part of the reason why teams are formed is because something's not going right, or something needs to be changed, or something needs to be fixed. And a lot of time, groups are organized the way that they are so that there might be a little bit of conflict, but that is positive conflict so that some new perspectives and new ideas come out of it. So when you get to choose the team, you as a manager, what are some of the things that you're going to look for when you're choosing the team?
That person's quality of work.
Okay, that person's quality of work. What else?
Been dependable.
Are they dependable? Okay. Anything else?
Do they work well with others?
Do they work well with others?
Yeah.
That's important. What else?
I was showing the team leader.
Are they always on time or late?
I'm at work today.
That's a good one. If we're thinking in terms of a team in a hospital, one thing we want to know is, there's somebody from the team, do they work in that area every day? Do they know what's going on? Can they speak firsthand on the problems that are there and how they need to be fixed? I think somebody said this. Do they have the knowledge and the skills to do the task? Do they have a clearly defined role on the team? And do they have the authority to make decisions and implement recommendations? All right, here are a few more. Talk about working with others. So, that's going to include, do they have the ability to calm people down? Or is everybody in the team just going to fight and nobody's going to step in to say, hey, we're not getting anything done, right? So you need to have people that are able to diffuse situations. What about this? Might help to have somebody on the team that has a sense of humor, right?
Right.
So when things get stale, or if there is a conflict and everybody's frowning at each other, you have somebody on the team that can crack a joke, even if it's corny, to kind of break up the tension, right? What about that one?
Yeah.
Good reputation. Does anybody on the team have a good reputation with the organization as a team player? If they do, that's definitely somebody you want to have on your team, right? When you're picking them as a manager. How do they feel about other people? Can they see the good in everybody? Or do they just look at everybody as not being a good person? And can they see the organizational goals? And can they understand that those goals are more important than their personal goals? Meaning, if I have to spend time working on this assignment with the team, I need to understand that my own personal productivity may go down a little bit, but I'm okay with that. Some people can't understand that or be okay with that. So when you're picking people to be on this team, that's one of the type of people that you need to make sure that you include. Let's talk about emotions. We talked a little bit earlier in the semester about emotional intelligence. When you think in terms of teams and emotions, how important are emotions on team? How much do they affect the teamwork? A lot, right? Why so? Everybody said that like loud and clear.
Because sometimes one person can throw off the mood of the whole team.
One person can throw off the whole mood of the whole team. You're absolutely right. And that's kind of what it says right here. Catch other people's moods. Any other reason why?
That's true, because the person don't have to say anything, you just know that I guess that person seems to have some type of problem. You can feel it.
You can feel it sometimes. Sometimes you don't even have to say anything. You just feel the environment or the climate. Anything else about emotions? What about if there's different genders on the team and how that might play into the team emotionally? Does that affect anything or no?
Yeah, sometimes.
Be careful now, we have a guy in the room, so.
Right.
I'm ready to work with males and women.
Yeah, sometimes it can, yeah.
Yeah.
If you have a male, sometimes if you have a male with a group, let me just use what I used to work, I'm not gonna take it. but we had one male in the building with a whole bunch of women.
Uh-huh.
So sometimes the humor with the women goes okay, but if he hears it, he kind of got offended by it. So that could really, that could interfere too.
Definitely.
I also think he can, when the women start just going off, I think he can kind of calm that group.
Well, some men tend to try to run away from that situation. They don't want to be involved. They dismiss
Yeah,
themselves
some
from
of
it.
them.
Most times you have a different outlook on what's
Uh-huh.
going on than what you're talking about,
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know.
which could be a good thing, right?
Mhm, that'd be a good thing.
yeah.
So how does emotions and leadership play into all of this that we're talking about today with teamwork?
I was
Well,
gonna say,
you-
since the first group we had, we had the one, Jeffrey's on here.
No.
Okay. Well, it just seemed like he really wasn't invested as much as the rest of us were. I guess, I don't know if it's because of, what can be a male, us female, but like, okay, we've met more, we discussed more about the topic, and he's like met that one day, and it's like, okay, well, I did my part, I'm done. That's kind of how I felt like when his role came, when he told me to do it.
That's probably
Because-
just all them women.
because-
go
That's what I'm saying, there's a lot of, we want to, most time women kind of over dramatize things. We want things perfect, but guys were like, okay, it's fine the way it is.
Right.
And I think that's how he kind of approached it.
Okay.
There was lack of enthusiasm on his part. That's what.
Okay. So if we're thinking in terms of leadership and all these emotions, how do you think the two can either work hand in hand or not work hand in hand?
They can't.
They can if you approach it the right way, because by that person being a leader and somebody is up under them, I mean, you have to listen to what they have to say. You don't want to just take sides.
Right.
So, I mean, you have to. If I'm somebody's supervisor and I ask you to do something and you give me a lot of pushback, then yeah, we're gonna have a meeting.
Okay. Now we have a meeting. Okay.
But I think if you got an emotional person, that's a supervisor, that's a leader,
Mhm.
I can't see it working because they're always gonna be, I don't know, something wrong with them.
I think it's okay to have some emotions. You just have to know how to control them.
How to control them.
And-
If they control them, yes.
And
And don't come in with an attitude.
Well, you
and
don't
that's
have
part of
some
it.
that-
It's about
Yeah.
what type of emotions you're having.
Mhm.
And if you look at this first bullet, it talks about enthusiasm, confidence, optimism. Those are all positive emotions
That's fine.
that are necessary for an effective team. So to just say that leaders shouldn't have any emotions
Well, they should have some.
may not absolutely be true.
Mhm.
They need to have the right types of emotions, like
Mhm.
positive emotions, to help motivate the team and keep them engaged, right?
That's good.
So we're talking about teams, teamwork today, and specifically in healthcare, when we think about teams, we have to think about the environment or the climate being very participative. Meaning, if you're working on a team with someone, you have to be willing to pitch in and help. And as you said, not just do your part. So in a healthcare environment, you can't necessarily have that attitude. Even if you are done with your task or done with your part, you need to be asking, what else is there that I can do, or can I help somebody else? And while this is a good quality to have in any industry, in healthcare, it's very important because a lot of times we're dealing with a matter of life and death. Not all the time, but a lot of times we're dealing with a matter of life and death. So if you have, done your task as a team member, you need to also think about pitching in to see if you can help somebody else, because you might be able to save somebody's life
That's true.
by being participative. So, there was some research done in 1997 on effective teams, and these are some of the characteristics that they found in effective teams. So they worked with more information, they had options, multiple alternatives, common goals, very important. Everybody on the team needs to have the same goals. They can't have conflicting goals. The team's not going to be effective. Humor. We talked about humor. Now we see through research, it's true. It can help the team be more effective. Effective teams were able to balance power structures. What that means is if you were a manager and you were a manager on the same team, you guys are able to handle that and work together and not try to overpower each other just because you feel like you have something to prove. And last thing they found was that the team focused on the facts. How often do we get consumed with attitudes and personalities and we totally forget about why we're even in the team, right? So it's very important to stay focused on the facts and on the goals and the objectives of the team. Crew resource management. Does anybody know about crew resource? It deals with mostly with the airline industry. We think if we take a minute to think about the airline industry and how they have to work together, how important is it for them to work together? Meaning the pilots, the flight attendants, they all have to work together, right? What happens if they don't work together?
Plane ain't gonna be running right.
Get your peanuts or your drinks.
You might not get your drinks.
You might not get your
You might not get your life. Okay? All right, so what has happened is over the years, a lot of industries, including the healthcare industry, have tried to model themselves after the airline industry because they have to have a very small percentage of error. They basically can't mess up. They can't drop the ball. They can't say, oops, I forgot to, turn on this fan or, they have to be pretty much perfect. So crew resource management deals with kind of modeling yourselves after the airline industry and focusing on the teamwork that they do to try to mimic your team to function as they do in terms of working together, reducing errors. Why is that so important in the healthcare industry? Similar to the airline industry. We're dealing with lives, right? Which is a little bit more valuable than, right, peanuts.
So, there's a new movie out. I think it has Denzel Washington, but
Yeah.
Okay, now, it's kind of the same thing that, when he goes to trial, I assume he goes to trial, correct? I just seen the commercial. So is that,
Yeah, that's what I said. You're talking about the plane or he was drinking.
Yeah, he was,
No,
I
Oh,
guess
he
he
didn't
was
even
like.
like.
So, if that was the case, if you knew that
Well, you don't
you
even
had a
have
drink
to use
before prior, who do you inform?
To tell you the truth, a lot of pilots take a drink before they get on that
Yeah, so,
But you don't even have to use that one as you can use like one of the real situations, like most of the past years, like the past couple of years, what's been happening? Planes get up there, ain't nobody got no gas. How you don't gas up a plane, I don't know.
Well,
But they're supposed to, but then it's like been, emergency flights landing and stuff like that because of simple stuff, gas. Like, they may have a great team, but, somebody dropped, but that's not a good ball to drop when you're that high in the air.
Right.
Because I like
Yeah,
to
but they
like
should have been
stuff.
checked before they took off.
So it's happening,
Yeah,
so when he's drinking before, like, is it?
Oh, it's in the Sky Miles Club. You know that place you can't get into if you go the wrong way. Yeah, that's up
the
there.
place,
That's
that's
included.
exactly right.
Like when you're in orientation, they go, "Here's your benefits," and you go get your liquor that way before you get on the plane. Not really. Don't quote me. Not really. But they have the Mile High Club thing though. Like,
Exactly.
just like you can drink. Yeah, just like you can get on the plane and drink. They have a minimum drink they have before, whatever.
Okay.
All right.
Came from.
Let's talk about duties or how-tos. As a team leader, can you think of any?
Can we think of any team leaders?
Any duties as a team leader? Responsibilities, how-tos.
Lead the team.
Have to schedule for the nurses to go see the patient.
Okay,
Schedule.
schedule.
How to assign the task for the other
How to
team.
assign the task. All right.
It's that. establishing like the level of communication, I guess, between them, as far as like scheduling meetings and things like that. Make sure everybody.
That'll work. Asking for ideas, right? When you guys meet together, what do you do? All right, once you have established who the leader is, do they usually say, all right, this is what we're gonna do? Or do they say, so what do you guys think? How's it usually go? They
What do you
ask,
think, or who wants to do
right.
such?
So you're asking for ideas from the group as to how you want to get it done, right? Acknowledges input and writes it down. Right. As a leader, you don't interrupt, right? And you don't let others interrupt other people. What about asking critics for suggestions? Every team has a critic.
Yeah.
Do you ignore them or do you ask them for input?
You still ask them for input.
Or are you scared to ask them because
No,
they're
you
critics?
still ask them. Don't care about
Criticism.
criticism.
I give
You
mine.
can take criticism. Sometimes it can be good.
Remains calm.
Exactly.
Who's gonna tell on that team leader right now? Who here doesn't remain calm?
Oh, I remember.
I know I did. I did not.
And on paper.
Okay, she's honest.
I'm honest, I know.
She's honest.
Yeah,
We're human, right?
yes.
But you should try to remain calm as a leader, right? All right, what about team members? Obviously, they don't have as long of a list as,
Yeah.
Everything
about-
that the leader doesn't do, like all that stuff, the opposite. So they, I guess, put the ideas into use.
Complete the tasks that they were assigned.
there you go. Take the assignments and follow through. It's one task, but it's very important. Right?
Follow through.
Yeah.
Specialized.
Follow through is important.
That's right.
So a few critical elements are that the summary of the meeting is shared. You know, a good thing to do is even once you meet, send out an email to recap.
Right.
As we discussed in our meeting, so-and-so's gonna do this, so-and-so's gonna do that, it's gonna be done by this date. Just so everybody's on the same page, expectations are out there, and you recapped everything that happened.
And you know, this last team that I was on, we did a lot of emailing back and forth. Cause Brandy, she emailed us the slides, and so we did a lot of emailing back and forth. If I saw something wrong, I'd email her, this don't look right. Can we do it this way, or you know?
How'd you like that?
I love that.
We did.
You know, we even met at the
Yeah,
library.
we had
to go
meetings.
over the design of it.
Yeah.
And that was very
I thought it was
beneficial.
good.
With my first thing, I emailed, but it didn't work.
So email doesn't always work. Okay.
No.
Phone calls.
Phone
Well,
call.
people don't pick up the phones. Or they don't give you their phone.
Text.
number.
Or they
That's
don't
what I
show
read.
They do text you back. When you
Okay.
text them, they do text you back.
It's good to have options, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
More than just email.
Yeah.
And the other critical element, as we kind of just discussed, is follow through and follow up. Follow up. How are the two different? How's following up different from following through?
Well, everybody's meeting together to look over the final product.
Making sure
Well,
that
making
what
sure
the
to
task is
understand.
supposed to be done, that they're still on there. Like some people can be off task and it not have nothing to do.
So which
with
one is
it.
that?
Follow through.
Yeah, what she said.
So what's follow up?
Get in touch with the person, make sure.
Make sure
Exactly.
they
Make sure, yeah.
something.
Yeah.
There you go. We have it. All right, so we know there's gonna be conflict. How do we manage it? When you guys get in conflict on your teams, or not even necessarily your teams in here, but just in general, how do you get through it?
Talk about it.
All right, so these are a few different ways. You can bargain. Any of you guys bargain or no? Not
Yeah,
tell
but
me.
your children.
Yeah.
Mine's more, I'll take it away.
So you can vote. Hopefully this happens.
Yeah.
You can work through it and problem solve. You can research. Maybe all of you were wrong. And you found this out once you did the research. maybe there's something totally different from where you all were that needs to be done, and you were all on the wrong page. Or if it gets really serious, third-party mediation.
Nobody have that.
And we're done for today.
Uh-oh.